Hello!
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Biggest I Ever Had with Dan and Dave, a show where we take a random year and we talk about the chart hits, the ones that aren't quite as good, and ones that we think are underrated.
So last time it was 1970, and we got to pick us a random year, and it was 1997.
Yeah, a year that we're very familiar with.
Yeah, weirdly, the first thing that came to mind when I looked through the list was we have covered a surprising amount of these songs in the first series, because this is the biggest selling year for singles.
And I wonder if a lot of that single purchasing was due to particular events in that year, such as the biggest hit of that year, Diana.
You shouldn't get hit by the car.
The biggest hit was the Mercedes crashing into the toll.
Yes. But yeah, we've covered that one. That was our series finale of series 1. So yeah, we've covered a lot of the songs here, but I think there's a couple of reasons. I think also the internet hasn't come along yet.
Yeah.
So it hasn't completely destroyed people actually buying music.
Yeah.
And also I feel like just after this, albums start, because revenue, this isn't the highest year for revenue.
Yeah.
It continually went up from about 92 onwards till about 2000, and then it plummets down in 2001, obviously because Napster comes along and things like that. But the revenue keeps going up. So although this is the biggest selling year for singles, it's not actually the most successful year for the record industry. That's 3 years later.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason is that albums at this point are very, very expensive. If you want to buy if there's a song on the radio that you like, in even a year or 2 years' time, you can go to the supermarket and buy the album for £10 on cassette. But at this point, they're about £15 to £20, and CDs even more. I think some CDs were, when they came out, first of all, retailing of £22.99, which, bearing in mind, adjusted for inflation, that's about £30.
Crazy, isn't it?
So, which is kind of, when people talk about the death of the music industry and how the internet basically killed it, I feel the music industry also killed the music industry, because that's price gouging. There's no way you can justify charging that much for a CD. Even back then, production values were never that high for CDs. And so to be charging basically £30 for an album is ridiculous.
Absolutely insane. One of the incredible things about this year is that every single number one was selling hundreds of thousands of copies a week, which is unheard of now. I
think some weeks, in order to crack the top 5, you need to sell a minimum of 150,000.
Crazy.
To crack the top 5. That's not even the number 1 position. This is peak 90s, basically.
Yeah, and you can tell that because the Spice Girls completely dominate the top 10s.
Yeah. Before we start, I have a present for you.
Okay.
Because the 90s are coming back, I bought this from a supermarket the other day. It is a pizza-flavoured cheese string.
Oh my god!
I haven't had one since about 1998.
But I've never had one of these.
Okay, well they were very, very big in the late 90s. And I've noticed things like this and turkey twizzlers and stuff are coming back.
Because it's 90s, it's in fashion, right?
It's all the people that were children and teenagers in the 90s are now working in product development, So they're bringing back all the things from their childhood, including pizza flavoured cheese strings.
For those not watching on YouTube, I am holding a cheese string. I've peeled off a slice of cheese, and it's a rather disgusting looking cheese string. It's got bits of, I can see oregano. Yeah, they used to be of oregano.
They used to be much brighter coloured. So the other thing is,
oh my god, it actually tastes like a pizza.
The weird thing about a cheese string is that's been in the fridge, and I've literally just taken it out. They're always lukewarm. It's never cold. I don't know if they just don't seem to retain any sort of temperature.
The thermodynamics are insane. They should make coats out of this.
But do you know what I mean? I've literally just taken that out of the fridge, and it's it's kind of
I have to say, I like this better than actual cheese strings. Imagine this on a pizza, although the thermodynamics of it
doesn't melt. No, I used to have cheese strings on toast.
Anyway, before we go too far down, spiraling down the cheese string route, we should probably give a review of what was in the charts at the time. So we had a multitude of Spice Girls number ones: To Become One, Mama, Spice Up Your Life, and Too Much. We had Tori Amos, Professional Widow, White Town, Your Woman, Blur, Beetle Bum, LL Cool J's Ain't Nobody, U2's Discotheque, No Doubt, Don't Speak, Chemical Brothers, Block Rockin Beats, R. Kelly's I Believe I Can Fly, Michael Jackson, Blood on the Dance Floor, Gary Barlow, Love Won't Wait.
Which was the only one that I hadn't heard. Everything else on this list I was familiar with apart from that song. So.
Olive's You're Not Alone, which great song. Eternal, I Want to Be the Only One, Hanson, Bop, Puff Daddy and Faith Evans, I'll Be Missing You. Oasis, Do You Know What I Mean? Will Smith, Men in Black. The Verve, The Drugs Don't Work. Elton John's Candle in the Wind.
Slash Something in the Way You Look Tonight or something.
Yeah, double A side.
Double A side.
Aqua's Barbie Girl, various artists with Perfect Day, and Teletubbies Say Eh-oh.
It is probably, I mean, this is only episode 3, but it is definitely the most eclectic mix.
Oh, it's diverse.
Literally
isn't it?
anything, it seems like, had a shot at getting to number 1. Because you've got independent, like, indie artists there, you've got Michael Jackson, you've got bubblegum pop, you've got
novelty hits.
You've got hip hop, arguably, with Puff Daddy and Will Smith, you know?
And LL Cool J.
And LL Cool J. It's a weird mix.
Blues with Tori Amos. That's a really bluesy single, isn't it?
It's supposedly written about Courtney Love. Supposedly. But we'll get to that because I don't know if that's on your list. I don't know what you have, and I don't... For those that don't know, this is episode 3, but I'll just give a little background of the setup of it. As Dave said, we pick best, kind of delete, and one that's maybe underrated. One thing, we don't talk about what each other has picked, so we might end up picking exactly the same things, in which case we're only going to be talking about like 3 or 4 songs, or we might have picked completely different things, and I have no idea what you've picked.
Yeah, let's move on to talk about what our favourite songs are. Do
you want to go first, or shall I?
Yeah, so I have picked Tori Amos's Professional Widow. I think it's a really interesting single, and something that when you look at it in the context of this list, it's very different.
Yeah, no, I love that song. It's not my pick, just because there's other things that I prefer. Yeah. Not any criticism on the song. I think it's brilliant. I think Tori Amos is a fantastic artist.
Yeah.
She allegedly wrote it about Courtney Love. The idea that kind of after Kurt Cobain died, Courtney Love... I don't want to literally criticise a widow, and bearing in mind this is 97, so that, Kurt died in 94. This is only 3 years later. Yeah. Arguably now, with 20 plus years worth of hindsight, you could call Courtney Love a professional widow. I mean, any chance for her to go on about Kurt Cobain, she seems to.
Absolutely.
And bearing in mind, that's not just me saying that. Her daughter, Frances Bean, has been...
Yeah.
I don't know if they're estranged or if they've made up their relationship. I don't keep a weekly update on Courtney Love and her daughter. But I know certainly for a long time she was just like, my mum is crazy. Yeah. Stay away from her. Like, she just uses my dad's name constantly to get attention, and she's a drug addict and she needs to shut up. And when your own daughter's saying that, like...
You need to, like, assess what you're doing.
She went on a weird, like, feud with Dave Grohl because Dave Grohl was like, well, okay, she manages the estate, but she was never part of Nirvana, and me and Chris Novoselic, the bass player from Nirvana, we arguably should be in charge of the estate.
Yeah.
And, why do we understand that, like, legally band decisions need to go through her, but why is it like, we'll be like, hey, let's do some 20th anniversary merchandise of Nevermind, and she'll be like, no, I don't like the design. And it's like, yeah, but you don't really get a say. You're going to get a third of the money, that's not a problem.
She's doing it to be difficult.
Yeah.
And for the publicity.
Yeah. And
allegedly.
She claimed as well that, like, he was hitting on her daughter, and then her daughter came out and categorically was like, that is not true, he's been more of a parent to me than you ever have.
Do you know who she reminds me of? Angie Bowie.
Yeah, like, she is.
Yeah.
I mean, I quite like some of Hole's music, so unlike Angie Bowie, who has no talent in anything, at least Courtney Love has made some good music.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and she's not bad, apparently, in The People vs. Larry Flint, which I've never seen, but everyone says she should have been nominated for an Oscar for it, but I've never seen it, so...
Yeah, so I picked this song because of, like, the choice of instruments is really interesting to me. I normally hate harpsichords in songs. Like, it just reminds me of, like, really twee, like, Baroque pop in the 60s, and it's awful. But this, it's, like, really dirty. It's kind of industrial, swampy, and bluesy. And it has, like, that kind of weirdness that makes Kate Bush so amazing. Yeah. In the way she phrases stuff and the lyrics she uses, and it's obviously, like, referencing the Sphinx by Edgar Allan Poe. It's really an intelligent song. And... weirdly, it changes time signature in the middle, so it starts off like 4/4, then it suddenly has like this surreal section where it goes into a waltz, and I just find that like really interesting that this got into the charts this time. I think maybe part of the reason it actually did as well as it did is because it was released with like remixes of it, which were very like club focused, and
that was a big thing in the 90s was like dance or trance remixes of like indie songs. The one that immediately comes to mind is "Missing" by Everything But the Girl.
Okay.
Which you don't immediately go, well, most people, if I said that song, would go, but it's the one with the "and I miss you," like the deserts miss that one. And that's a brilliant remix of that song. Because if you listen to the original, it's fine. It's just kind of an indie song.
Yeah.
But they did sort of a trance remix of it, and I think it got to number one. Might have been the year before. That's off the top of my head, so if I'm wrong, I don't know. But again, yeah, I think we're certainly seeing remixes working, and then cynically record labels will kind of do it to death. And we'll do like 5 versions of the same single.
They keep pumping out remixes.
Yeah. Fatboy Slim was doing a lot of like remixes of songs as well. Because he did Brimful of Asher with Corner Shop, which I think was the next year in '98.
Yeah.
He did a remix of Body Moving by the Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
So that was becoming like more and more popular. These sort of big DJ artists like remixing indie music and making, not that the Beastie Boys were indie music, but making it into kind of something completely different, which I find really interesting. I like that song. I think that's a good pick.
What was your pick?
Well, I was stuck between 2.
Okay.
So I'm going to be greedy and pick 2.
Okay.
The first one you kind of mentioned, Block Rockin Beats by the Chemical Brothers. I love the Chemical Brothers. Weirdly, when I saw them live at Glastonbury, they faked it.
Really?
So we went and saw the Chemical Brothers, and they were fine. I think the problem was where we were stood, the sound didn't travel brilliantly, which always lets down an artist. But when I got home, my mum and dad were like, we watched the Chemical Brothers on iPlayer. And I was like, oh, cool, yeah, no. And I watched back the set, and they'd added, like, extra strobes.
Oh, wow.
Because there wasn't that much of a stage setup.
Yeah.
But when you watch the, like, BBC performance, I was like, they've enhanced this, because it wasn't that great when I was there.
So you're saying they're cheats?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that or the BBC kind of, like...
Yeah.
Added something. But Block Rockin Beats is one of my favourite Chemical Brothers songs. Let Forever Be or Setting Sun would probably be my favourite. But or Hey Boy, Hey Girl, which I think got number 1 the next year. But I love the Chemical Brothers. I will talk about this for my underrated one, but 90s British dance music is for me the peak of dance music. I don't really want to call it EDM because something uses EDM to me is a very specific sort of 2010s sound, which we'll get onto another time, I'm sure, at some point. This isn't EDM, this is just electronic dance music. But I feel like the British stuff is the best stuff in the world, and the Chemical Brothers are
it's kind of got
artists.
like a classy timelessness about it that a lot of other dance stuff doesn't really have. Yeah,
it's brilliant. I mean, I love that song. I love the Chemical Brothers. Yeah, and I think that's just a great one.
What was your other one?
My other one is The Verve's The Drugs Don't Work.
Yeah, that was one that was on my short list of
I love that song. Misunderstood song as well, because I think a lot of people think it's about like being a heroin addict or something. And it's not. He actually wrote it about his dad. I think his dad was in a hospital. I might be slightly wrong with the story of this, but I believe his dad was in a hospice at the time. And it was basically about how, like, when you're in a hospice, you're going to die. You know, like, you don't go to... nobody comes out of a hospice unless you're in a body bag, basically. It's kind of more about making you comfortable before you pass. And his dad went into a hospice and he went and visited him, and it was kind of like, you know, he was on pain medication and that was about it. You know, they can't do anything else for him. And I think that's I can't think of many other songs that are about that. You know, it's a very interesting subject matter.
Yeah, I was going to have that for my underrated one, but I eventually didn't pick that one. I think it's really massively overshadowed by the bigger hit, Bittersweet.
Yeah, it is slightly.
But it is a good song.
Yeah, and I like Bittersweet Symphony. A little bit overplayed. Not my favourite Verve song. It might be probably History or Sonnet would be my favourite Verve. So I like the Verve a lot. Although they reformed in about 2007 and it was terrible.
Oh, really?
They hate each other, and their album, I think the only half decent track was called Valium Skies. The rest of it was terrible. I think the album was called Fourth, and it was pretty awful, and they all hate each other. But the guitarist, I have a little family connection. His mum is friends with my grandma, and they go on like saga holidays together. And she was like, "Oh, but don't worry, her other sons have proper jobs." So I think it's Nick McCabe.
Nice. Okay, so let's move on to the track that we want to delete.
Yes, so delete from history, either because it's so bad or it represents something that we really, really hate. Before I do this, I want to do a disclaimer. I'm very loath to talk about things we've already covered. So if we hadn't done like an almost 2-hour episode on Candle in the Wind...
2 episodes? We did
2 episodes, we did lots of... We talked about Candle in the Wind and everything surrounding it to death. So if you want to know my opinions on that, go and listen to those very long episodes. But that would have been my number one choice.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I'm not going to pick that because I've done that to death. So I don't, that would have been the worst thing, and I would have deleted everything connected to it.
Yeah.
But since I can't pick that, I'm probably going to pick one of two things. Again, I like to pick a couple options because I look at this list multiple times, and my gut reaction is one thing, and then my reflection is another thing.
Yeah.
So my gut reaction was I Believe I Can Fly by R. Kelly.
Same.
Not just because of R. Kelly. We talked last week about Rolf Harris and how, all the disgusting things that Rolf Harris has done and how that completely taints your opinion of him, but also how much I hated the song. This is the same here. Unlike Rolf Harris, R. Kelly has made music that I like.
Yeah.
And as much as I hate R. Kelly and I hope he goes to prison for the rest of his life, I will fully accept that he has had an incredibly significant contribution to popular music, and he's made a lot of music that I really, really like. So this is not one of those songs. I'm not picking this just because it's R. Kelly.
Yeah.
As I said with the Rolf Harris one, it was a bit of both. I hated the song and I hated the artist.
Yeah.
This one, I'm like, okay, I hate the artist as a person, but I don't hate all of R. Kelly's music. He's made a lot of music that I really, really like.
Yeah.
I Believe I Can Fly. It's awful. I don't like Space Jam. Space Jam is terrible. It's one of those 90s nostalgic things. Again, as we were talking at the beginning with the cheese string, people who were like teenagers when they went and saw Space Jam now probably work in the movie industry and are like, let's remake the thing that I like.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Space Jam 2. I don't want to see Space Jam 2.
I'm not interested.
I didn't enjoy the first Space Jam. I remember watching it on video at school in about 2000, and even then, and I would have been about 6 or 7, I remember thinking, this is rubbish.
It's rubbish.
Michael Jordan can't act. It's just the Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
I never got Space Jam. It's one of there's two kind of big 90s things that I really don't quite understand why people are so nostalgic for them.
Yeah.
And it's Space Jam and Jurassic Park.
Oh, Jurassic Park.
It's fine. It's fine. But I don't get. People are like, it's my Back to the Future. It's my like.
It's not as iconic as Back to the Future.
It is like that to some people. It's like it is my. Oh my god, they're making another Jurassic Park. I'm like, really? I mean, there's like the first one's okay, and the rest of them are pretty shit. So anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. But yeah, so it was between R. Kelly's "I Believe I Can Fly," which I don't think I need to go into any more reasons. It's boring and it's a bad song. Anyway, the other one. That's my obvious choice.
Yeah.
My other second choice was Discotheque by U2.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's a bad song. U2 are a weird band. They go through phases. They're either... And I don't know if I want to give them credit. They're experimental, so I'll give them that.
Yeah.
So when they fail, they don't fail like... I'm trying to think of a relevant example of a band that kind of fails. Coldplay, for example, when they fail, the reason they fail is because it's boring.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested. And I don't even hate Coldplay that much, but they're just the first example that came to my head. But when U2 fail, it's at least very, very interesting. Now, I believe Discotheque is off the Pop album, which was Brian Eno produced. I believe. You might want to check that for
Produced by Flood.
Flood, okay. Maybe, yeah. Well, anyway, check the Pop album a sec. See if was the album done by Brian? The one above. There you go.
Oh yeah, no. That was Flood, Howie B, and Steve Osborne.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So it wasn't Brian Eno.
I think this is after the Brian Eno collab.
Yeah, after the Brian Eno stuff. This is their weird. In the mid '90s, they were pretty. They started off the '90s really strong. I like Acton Baby. I like Mysterious Ways and all those sorts of songs. Then they do pop, which is really, really bad in the mid '90s. Yeah. They do a couple other things. They also, I think they did the Batman soundtrack around about here.
Great.
Yeah, and it gets really, really bad. And then they redeem themselves towards the end of the album, towards the end of the decade with Is It All That You Can Leave Behind? Or say it's the one with the album cover of them in Charles de Gaulle Airport.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant album. The follow-up, How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, is really, really good. And then they've not really done anything since then that I've really cared about.
Yeah.
But this mid-90s U2, and it's their least popular version of U2. If you go on... watch U2 on tour, they play they play a song from pretty much every album apart from the Pop album.
Yeah.
And I think even Bono has come out and said it was rushed. The problem was they had this big tour booked.
Yeah.
The Pop Mart tour, which is the big famous one that's in The Simpsons, the 200th episode. You know, the one with the big silly screen and it's all massive. And Bono's deliberately like being hipster ironic by like being this over the top rock star. And it's like it's supposed to look like a shopping centre, the big stage setup.
Yeah.
He said they were so focused on that, they just kind of let the album... Oh, that will get finished at some point. And I think they've talked about revisiting it and kind of redoing that album to make it... But they've never got around to doing it, And to my knowledge, there might be U2 fans that sit there and go, yes, they did, and it's a brilliant re-release. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know about that. But this album's terrible. The video... This album's terrible. This song is terrible. The video has them like dressed up like the Village People.
Yeah, weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not. It's like, are you in on the joke? Because do you know that this is shit?
Yeah.
Because if you know this is shit, why put out like deliberately shit music?
Like
yeah.
it's almost as if looking at the video, it's like they know that it's bad.
Yeah, it's like, haha, look
what we've done. Aren't we bad?
Like the 90s, people in the 90s love to be ironic.
Yeah.
But it's like you're still making bad music. Just because you're making bad music ironically is still making bad music. Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing U2 have done. I mean, they forced a fucking album onto an iPod.
Oh, that.
And Bono, I don't know if we've talked about Bono. I don't hate Bono as much as some people, but, you know, Bono needs to shut up, which I think he has now. I don't see him on the media as much as I used to, and he doesn't he's not there like, I mean, Nelson Mandela's dead, but he's not doing things like, you know, hanging out with Desmond Tutu all the time and trying to act like he's saving the world. He doesn't seem to be doing that as much. Yeah, so they do need to pay some tax, but it's not British tax anyway, it's Irish tax, so the Irish can get cross about that. I don't like discotheque.
No.
Delete that one from history. Delete the years 92 to about 99 for U2. Let them come back in 99, and then...
You've expanded the scope.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, that's my choice for the delete. What was your choice?
So, I was... I listened to the list. In general, I delete Gary Barlow from history, but his entry isn't offensively bad. It's just
It was the only
boring.
one I had never heard of. Because in the 1970 episode, there was quite a few that I hadn't heard of because I wasn't alive in 1970. Now, I was alive in 97, but I was very little. But I was still, you know, these songs were still played a couple of years later. So listening to the list, I knew, because even the ones like Your Woman by Whitetown, which I didn't immediately, when I listened to it, I went, oh yeah, I vaguely remember that. I just haven't heard it since around about that time, but I vaguely remember that. But the Gary Barlow one has just had no staying power.
Yeah.
And it's
because
weird.
it's throwaway music. I think in a few years, he's going to be, you know, in the previous episodes, we talked about the singers that get into the charts in Sainsbury's.
Yes.
Like, really
He'll do a Frank
albums.
Sinatra album cover.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
His music, it doesn't inspire young people to listen to it.
No,
it's
mums love his music.
But the tracks that I delete, so obviously I picked R. Kelly as number one. Candle in the Wind, obviously we don't like. But then there was novelty one, Teletubbies Say E-O.
Yeah, which
I
think
just grinds.
We
in
talked
the back
about
of my
that
mind.
briefly in one of our Simon Cowell episodes.
Yeah, it's just trash, capitalising on a thing. But the funny thing that I find with that is parents must have gone to shops and bought that. Children don't go buy CDs. There were people actively buying that, Dan.
Kids are screaming in the middle of HMV, though, and they want the Teletubbies single.
Yeah, they see the cover.
You're stood there with your headphones in, because you remember they used to have those CDs with the headphones in that you listen. They're there trying to listen to the new, like, Pavement album, and your fucking kid's kicking off in the pram because he sees a fucking La La on the front of this cassette, and you just go, fine, just hand it to him, let it take it in the fucking pushchair, and put my headphones in, and shut the fuck up. Why did I have you? That's why.
The reason I hate it the most is because it's one of those earworms. You'll hear it once, and then like it'll creep upon you. It's a
jingle, isn't it?
It'll creep upon you. You'll be like doing something irrelevant, and then you'll be like, Teletubby. It'll come into your brain, and it'll like stay there.
I see your fourth choice, and I don't agree with it.
So my fourth choice was Hanson's Bop.
I love Bop. It's perfect, middle of the road, like cheesy pop. Plus, Hanson have gone on to be a really, really good band.
Yeah, well. The reason I picked it is because it is overplayed, and you can like just imagine it. That section where they go into the chorus, it's advert music.
It is. I think I've said this. I don't know if I've definitely said this, but right. So, do you remember Iron Man 3?
Yeah. Well, I've probably seen.
Yeah, Iron Man 3 opens with Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Da by Eiffel 65. When that now listen up. When that first like 2 seconds plays.
Yeah.
What year is that flashback? It's 1999.
Yeah.
Because that song is 1999. That's the first thing I think of. And I immediately know from that musical cue that Tony Stark is in 1999.
Okay.
Right? Bop by Hanson.
You just know it's 97.
If I play that, I know it's 1997.
Yeah.
I know immediately.
If I hear that song, I'm thinking, oh, who's left the adverts on and it's playing like a car insurance advert?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favourite song ever, but I wouldn't delete it because...
Okay, but we can delete Teletubbies.
We can delete Teletubbies,
and we can
definitely.
delete I Believe I Can Fly,
Yes.
and Candle in the Wind.
Yes.
And whatever the hell that Gary Barlow shit was.
Yes.
Okay, right, so moving on to your most underrated track.
Shall I go first? So I've got I've got two. I'm very greedy this week. The first one that I picked was I Want to Be the Only One, Eternal Virtue.
Oh, right, yeah.
Baby Renans. Because, so there's two genres of music that get mocked by Americans.
Yeah.
One is British hip-hop, and I kind of get why British hip-hop is mocked because there's a lot of terrible, white boys being like, yo, I'm on my estate, gonna go to the shops and buy myself a cake. You know, it's crap. But there is also a lot of good British hip-hop.
Yeah.
You know, there is a lot of good British hip-hop, particularly grime. You know, there is a lot of British hip-hop, particularly modern stuff, that I feel Britain can be proud of.
Yeah.
One genre that really, really doesn't get its due is British R&B. Because when people think of British R&B, I think the sort of thing they think of is things like UB40, who arguably are British reggae, if not British. Or like Simply Red, like white boy, terrible music.
Yeah.
There is, however, some good British R&B. The two artists that come to mind immediately around about this period is Gabrielle, who, if Gabrielle, one of her singles, had got to number one, I would have immediately put her, because she never broke America, to my knowledge. And if you're American, go and listen to like Gabrielle's like top 20 songs. They are all amazing, and you'll sit there and go, how were these not bigger hits in America? I think the only thing that an American audience would know of her was she did the Bridget Jones soundtrack.
Oh, right.
So I think Bridget Jones was very big in America. So people maybe would recognise the songs from there. But another artist for that is Eternal. Eternal were a bit of a weird one. Louise Redknapp, who was married to Jamie Redknapp, who was a footballer for Liverpool in the late 90s, and he's Harry Redknapp's son. She was a member of Eternal. She was a pop star. She is white. The other three members are black. She stood out, not just because of the colour of her skin. She doesn't in any way fit with their sound.
Really?
She was kind of bubblegum pop. She was kind of sold at the time. I mean, this was pre-Britney Spears, but that sort of thing, like pop princess. She was a member of Eternal, and it didn't fucking work. She left, and they immediately had their biggest hit, because they were kind of a precursor to Destiny's Child. And I feel reluctant to compare them, because it feels a little bit like what you're comparing Free Black Woman as. But it was that genre of music.
Yeah.
R&B. I Want to Be the Only One is a fantastic song. They absolutely kill it. I wish they'd gone on to have more success, particularly because I don't particularly like Louise Redknapp every time I've seen her in interviews. So it's quite funny that, you know, the white girl leaves the group and suddenly they're good, you know. So that would be one. I think time has kind of forgotten about them as well. I think if it played in like a 90s night, maybe people would remember it. But the really big hits on this list, I still hear. And that's not one, doesn't really seem to get its due. My second one, and I think this option will kind of just prove that I'm not just hating R. Kelly for being R. Kelly.
Okay.
Because arguably more problematic than R. Kelly is Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Now, Blood is on the Dance Floor it's actually a remix, I believe, of a song. He did like a remix album in the mid-90s. 90s Michael Jackson is awful.
Yeah.
80s Michael Jackson, great. Dangerous comes out around about 92. Apart from Black or White, and there's a couple other tracks, it's pretty terrible. Then we get into the really pretentious nonsense. We have History is the year, or His Story, I think is actually what it's meant to be, which is a god-awful album.
Yeah.
It's basically all about how cross he is that he's being accused of being a paedophile.
Stop noncing on kids. Then.
Yeah. I don't want to go down the route of Michael Jackson. I think we've talked about it multiple times anyway.
Yeah.
But that album came out, it's pretty terrible. There's nothing really worth watching. It gets very, very pretentious. There's a lot of Messiah complex nonsense. Earth Song famously is on that album.
Yeah.
I think You Are Not Alone might be on that one, but it might be the one before. I don't actually
and
care.
This is the time period in which Jarvis Cocker mooned him.
He didn't even moon him, he just like
shakes his crack.
Yeah. But anyway, it gets very, very pretentious. Anyway, this song, Blood is on the Dance Floor, it kind of harkens back to the kind of Beat It era,
Yeah.
like Michael Jackson. And it's a really, I think, as far as Michael Jackson songs go, it's really underrated. I think it was his last
Absolutely,
UK number one. It works really well. He looks creepy as fuck in the video, so don't watch the video. Particularly as, like, not even knowing what we know about Michael Jackson now, to me, he's asexual, or at least that's how his stage presence is.
Yeah.
I know we know what was going on behind the scenes, but him trying to romance a woman just does. It looks like an alien trying to romance her.
Right.
Have you ever seen Earth, Women Are Easy?
No,
Julian Groffero. That movie, it's kind of like aliens shouldn't be having sex with humans, and Michael Jackson shouldn't be having sex with anybody.
Yeah, right.
So I think he's like in a nightclub and he's trying to like entice this woman, and it just looks creepy. But the song is really, really good, and when people talk about Michael Jackson songs, I don't think it's ever really mentioned as one of the better ones. So it's not necessarily that it's underrated, because I mean it's probably the most overrated artist on this fucking list, and probably by far the most successful artist on this list. But I will say this, that as far as Michael Jackson songs go, that one to me is underrated.
Yeah, when I listened back to refresh myself, I thought, actually, this is a good track.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't expecting it, particularly in this period of Michael Jackson, for it to be any good, but I eventually was like, right, I'm going to add that to my library.
Yeah, it's a decent song.
The one that I picked as my most underrated is White Town's Your Woman.
Yes, which I said there were two that didn't immediately come to mind, and it was this and Gary Barlow.
Yeah, I don't.
But then when I listened to this back, I was like, oh yeah, I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, well, I don't remember this song, and it's shocking because literally I heard it and I was like, this sounds so like
contemporary.
It sounds really contemporary. It sounds current, and I was actually shocked because he is a one-hit wonder. I can't pronounce his real name. He's a British Indian guy. He goes by White Town, but it's a one-hit wonder. But it's not bad. Like the majority of one-hit wonders are just novelty, horrible, awful songs. But this one is absolutely fantastic. And to be fair to him, he did say when he was questioned, "What does it feel like to be a one-hit wonder?" He said, "It's better than being a no-hit wonder," which is hilarious. It shows that he's got like a good character about him. But it is subversive. He kind of summed up the story as being about a straight guy in love with a lesbian, or being a gay guy in love with a straight man.
Which is the plot of Chasing Amy that would have come out around about this time.
Yeah,
so that was obviously a thing on people's minds. Like,
yeah, but I think it's great. It's nice, intelligent pop. Sounds great. He uses a sample which I thought was particularly like intelligent, because the sample is from a really old, like early 20th century song called My Woman, which is a really misogynistic song, but he's kind of changing it around. He's adding in the LGBT element, and I think it's a good slice of intelligent pop.
Yeah, and it's something like that would never get to number one now.
No.
Which is the strange thing about this list, is it on the, just not reading into it properly, it feels like the most corporate list because of how much they're selling and how these are like superstar artists. But these kind of indie artists can still outsell them. The musical landscape still allows for that, which I don't think it would now, but arguably it should now more than ever because we have streaming.
Yeah, so it should be like possible for people to like break through into the charts based on a song being
anybody
really good.
Can upload something to Spotify now. You don't need a record label to get your records in HMV.
Yeah.
Because who cares if your record isn't in HMV?
No one else is.
No one else is. No one's going to HMV. But it's strange.
Yeah, but what's happened is we've just still got to a point in which the biggest artists monopolise anyway, because they've got the audience there, they've got the subscribers, they've got the people who are willing to put it on a playlist.
We'll maybe save that for another episode.
Because we need to go like be in the current era.
We're in 97.
Downloads.
So.
But for that to go and sell like over 100,000 copies a week, I think it's actually incredible. I really like that song.
No, I completely
That's
get
another
that
one that's gone straight onto a playlist.
Yeah, that's fine. Did you have anything else?
So I was contemplating whether it was that or Blur's Beetle Bum, which is another pretty good
I like
song.
Beetle Bum. This isn't my favourite era of Blur. I didn't really like this. Is their fifth album, which is just entitled Blur. Beetle Bum and what's the other track that's on there? Song 2. They're the two big hits from that album. The album isn't really that great apart from that. I think it's got MOR on there, which has like a video of them robbing a bank from memory. But apart from that, it's one of their weaker albums.
Yeah.
But I like Beetle Bum. Supposedly I think it's about heroin, or taking heroin, or I think that's what it's been hinted at.
Yeah.
Nice sort of like crunchy guitar sound.
Yeah, when I listened to it, I just thought this is like the height of Britpop.
Yeah.
It's like taking so many references from the Beatles.
Yeah.
It's like British music.
They only had
Perfect.
2 number ones, Blur. It was this and Country House, and this is definitely the much better of the 2 number ones they had, because I can't stand Country House. And I like Blur a lot. I think they're fantastic. I've seen them live. They were great. They definitely played Beetle Bum. So
Yeah, well, it's one of only 2 number ones.
One of only 2 number ones. Yeah, but they've got enough songs.
They've got enough classics, right?
If you didn't hear Beetle Bum at a Blur concert, you wouldn't be like, oh, well, I didn't see them play. Somebody I work with was going to see, they're going to a food festival, and they're going to, today, day of recording, hello, you know who they are. He does watch. And Scouting for Girls are playing, and I was like, are they gonna open with She's So Lovely and end with She's So Lovely? Like,
yeah, they're just gonna play it for like half an hour.
Yeah, I mean, they did have a number 1 single that wasn't She's So Lovely, believe it or not.
And what was that?
This ain't a love song, it's goodbye.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I remember that. But anyway.
Yeah, so that's our opinions on the music of 1997. If you agree with us, let us know in the comment section. If you disagree, let us know. We want to hear your opinions on this. Get involved in the conversation. If you're listening on a podcast streaming thing, go over to YouTube. I'll put a link in the description, and just join us there.
And watch us eat weird shit on YouTube.
Yes, that's part of another series. We do a lot more fun stuff on YouTube.
Yes, please. Shall we pick next week's? Or
Yeah.
I say we're not really doing this weekly, but next time's.
Yeah, so what we'll do now is we'll go to Google and we'll go to the random number generator and we'll pick the year for next time's episode.
It's going to be like 96 now.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 2018.
That long distant year.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. I mean, I suppose it's different. We've done the 70s, we've done 2006, we've done the noughties, we've done the 90s, now we're doing the late 2010s.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, I guess that's what we're doing.
Nothing's like coming to mind that came out that year.
It seems so recent, but yeah, I'm sure we'll find something.
Yeah. Okay, so like and subscribe and join us next time when we review the number 1 singles of 2018.
2018.